this gets a clear priority. Please, let's not write suppositories in a 10-year-old child. They know what it is. Alright, so we try and write syrups. Unless NPO is a surgical requirement, then we go to IV, because if NPO is a surgical requirement, I'm sure they need an IV as well. So so it's totally up to taking good care of the child's dignity as well. Because children, being children, they will not have special wards. They will always be in general ward, or they will be in twin sharing, because there is always I can see the lip laughing here, because there's always a cost constraint when it comes to kids, and you can imagine what the pediatric anesthesiologists are then left with. Well, matter of fact. So we come to paracetamol. Let's come to each drug and how we can use it judiciously. Coming to paracetamol, a very simple drug, can be used all alone. It may not be very strong, but together with NSAIDs or opioids, it does a great job. So dosages, 15 milligrams to 20 milligrams per kilogram. QID, 60 milligram per kilogram per day is the maximum dose that we can give. We have all possible formulations. So we have a suppository, we have a syrup, we have IV. Perfalgan probably is bombarded on us to an extent that we can never forget that drug. Coming to ibuprofen, here are the dosages. It's again a day-to-day drug, but please go to the required dosage. And whenever we write an NSAID, we are giving it orally or Jonac or suppositories, whichever way. We must be liberally hydrating our kids, because if there is an NSAID, if there is a kidney damage, it is usually because they remain very, very dehydrated. A well-hydrated child with an NSAID going on is not likely to have any renal damage. Fine. So now coming to diclofenac, these are the suppositories which we use day in and out. They can itch a little, so please coat it with lignocaine adrenaline jelly, and not adrenaline, but lignocaine, simple lignocaine jelly, and then insert it. Please do not insert it right at the opening of the anus and leave it at that. The child howls and it comes out and there is no pain relief, and nobody will give it more, because thinking that one NSAID is already being given, so they will wait for 8 long hours to go. So make it a point to see to it that it has gone beyond the anal sphincters. If your fingers are big, take a needle cover and push it, and please leave the needle aside. Alright, so this is how suppositories have to be put in. And please keep very, very sharp visual on these small little things. Naproxen is again a good drug, in fact used for rheumatoid arthritis or any arthritic condition in children. They're quite safe for even longer period. They can be used perioperatively as well, but remember, no matter what NSAID, please give liberal juices and fluids to children. Tramadol also is a good drug. We do bank upon Ultrasets a lot, at least one time night dose. Ultraset is a combination of paracetamol and Tramadol, and it works well. Remember, if we write Tramadol, we should be writing NSAIDs as well. Once we have, if we go to higher opioids, opioids is equal to NSAIDs. Coming to regional technique, and let's come to the rule of 3. If we talk on regional techniques, we probably might talk till tomorrow morning. So we will just highlight certain regional techniques, or I would just like to give you a glimpse of what can be done with regional techniques. So the rule of 3 again for regionals is we need to choose a good technique. So how can we choose it? It has to be very simple to begin with. Use the simplest possible one. Use the one which will have minimum side effects given the proportion of the surgery. So, and it should not interfere with the motor function and early ambulation if the case is a daycare surgery. So these are the 3 principles you must be keeping in mind before we choose a regional block. There are lots of benefits here. The more you read, the more you realize the benefits of regional anesthesia. We in children's anesthesia services, I don't think we do any single case without a regional, unless it's probably a neuro case, and there also we do take a chance and put a occipital and 2 supraorbital blocks whenever we get a chance to do that. So there isn't, at least 99% of the times you can perform a regional block. If you do not have time, because that's an usual excuse given, a simple local infiltration after a hernia block also will be quite helpful. You do it or the surgeons do it, it doesn't matter, but if the surgeons are doing it, please calculate the dose for them. Coming to, again, simple surgeries such as this particular removal of cyst, a good a little bit of injection of lignocaine adrenaline, 2-fold help, gives a better feel to the surgeon, gives an analgesia to you. Coming to this particular operation, which is lip repair, you can have a good block of the infraorbital nerve. There was one line which dropped from the mid of the eye and one line from the nose, from the angle of the nose. This is an internal technique. There is no voice here, otherwise you would have heard me saying that I can feel actually the needle beneath the finger of mine, and then I inject just 1 to 1.5 ml. The other side, we shall be showing you the external technique. Slightly bending the needle. Okay, getting into the same one. All the time, although we are moving from inside out, the needle movement is placed and understood by this finger which is resting at the injection point. If we are not too experienced to do this, then we can come to a single other injection which actually is just feel the bone and come out a bit, maybe 1 centimeter, aspirate and inject. It's as simple as this. The only thing is you will have a drop of blood here, whereas you won't have a drop. You won't have anything of this kind here. But then it's a less price to pay if we are not too used to that technique. Well, this is the block that we were talking about. It helps a lot in scalp suturings, supraorbital block. Feel the notch and put just 1 ml or something here. You don't need much because it's a tight compartment. Aspirate and inject. Very simple. Greater auricular. We come to clefts now. So we are looking at the greater palatine here. After the placement of Dingman, aspirate the local anesthetic. This is the area where you need to be injecting. It will be presented to you as in fact outpouching. If the drug used is Leglocin adrenaline, you will start seeing a bit of blanching here as well. So that's a greater palatine block. It needs to be repeated on the other side as well. And please keep on repeated aspirating before you inject the entire drug. Central neuroaxis block, these are the most simple to perform, and this is probably the day-to-day block that you would use. So this is a caudal block. You have seen it in the previous speaker's video as well, but the only difference here is we are using a peripheral nerve stimulator. We just trying to make it a PV with evidence-based. You may or may not do it, but just for the, I thought I must share this with you. So if you use it with the PNS, then you start the current and see the perianal twitching. It gives you an objective evidence that you indeed are inside the phylum terminale when you get the PNS response at a very, very high current. If you get a PNS response at current as low as 1 or even 1.5, please believe that you are in the CSF, because you need a very high current of around 3 and plus 3 to get this twitching. Raj test is positive here again because we can actually just give 1 ml or even half of that and the perianal twitching is going to go away. Well, now you can give ultrasound scans here. You get the scans in front of you with whichever probes you have. If you have a hockey stick probe, hockey stick or linears are the best ones. You see the phylum terminal here and the dural sac ending here in units. It's even more distally, and you see the drug spread, and we know where we are going. So it's not very easy for me to stop with 3 slides for ultrasound because lots can be said here, but I think we are dealing more with pain management rather than regional anesthesia, hence I'm just going to give you the glimpse of what can be done. So this is a single shot epidural or single shot epidural site specific, or put in a catheter if your surgery demands that. Major the surgery, you have all the reasons to keep a catheter unless and until there is a good contraindication such as coagulation issues or a total coordination between the post-operative team. If the team is not geared, we should not be putting catheters, period. This is LOR with syringe. As I said, it can be single shot or continuous depending upon the severity of the case. So this is LOR typically done with saline because this is what we use. We believe that saline is obviously safer because it does not cause any embolizations, it does not cause any nerve root compressions, and it does not give us patchy blocks. And the catheter walks in because there is a good amount of tissue dilatation that has happened because the potential space has now been created into an actual space by occupation of the saline amidst the ligamentum flavum and the posterior dura. So this is how the catheter is passed in, and we would be securing it either with a Tegaderm or whatever skin preparation you have. Once you have done it in a neonate, please be careful because they are going to stick the cautery pad as well on the back of the neonate, and it's going to take the entire back. So please tell your surgeons to do that for the so that they keep the cautery pad on the leg and not on the back, because while they peel off the cautery pad from the back, it's very likely that the epidural catheter comes along with the pad. It has happened to me, that's why I am telling you this, because it is a plight to see once it does happen. Well, we can even place thoracic epidural. Do it very often for thoracoscopic decortication. People here who are very trained in regionals can ask, why aren't we giving paravertebrals? Because infection can be taken into the epidural space if we use paravertebral when there are empymas around. So paravertebral, the thoracic epidural principles do remain the same. We do need an angle. We do need to be very site specific, and for the entry we do need an angle because even kids have a very crowded spine structure in the thorax. So we do elicit the loss of resistance. All this can be monitored with ultrasound as well. The other person will show us the ultrasound image and one person will work because they are always aided blocks. They are not guided blocks when it comes to ultrasound and spine, the exception being the caudal block. Well, so this is done, and again, while it is done, please make it sure that you stick the catheter or you do the sticking placement in a manner that it doesn't come in the field of the surgeon. If it is a left side procedure, see to it that the catheter is placed along, turn it and place it around the right side. It's as simple as that, so that it does not come in their painting and draping. Otherwise, a betadine or any scrub that they use is going to loosen your sticking and you might lose your good epidural. So this is how actually you can place the catheter. I'll just show you a bit of it. We are actually at the level of the scapular spine. I'm just waiting for you to see the turn that we give to the epidural catheter. So take it off midline and then stick it, and then let them operate on this particular part. Ideal combinations. We will have ideal combinations to work with in most of the places. So ideal combinations for regionals and additives is clonidine and dexmedetomidine. Clonidine is more time tested than dexmedetomidine. Coming to peripheral nerve blocks, again, anything that can be done in an adult can be done in a neonate, provided you have the reasons and proper indications to do so. So a hernia block can be performed, a rectus sheath block can be performed. A penile block obviously is a very day-to-day work again. So penile can be, penile or caudal can be a choice again depending upon the case. If the penis has an infection or an inflammation, go to caudal. If caudal has an issue, come to penile, or see what your surgeon also wants it, or the previous experience of the surgeon is urinary retention due to caudal, then come to penile. So there would be a case-to-case discrimination done out here. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go in the details. I will just show you one prototype of a regional anesthetic that can be performed with ultrasound, and I think I shall rest my case here. So any nerve, let it be any, let it be brachial plexus or let it be sciatic or let it be femoral, the principles are going to be the same. We are going to see the nerve. This is the nerve here. The needle can be put from here. It will cause some tissue dissection. Use the tissue dissection to your benefit. I will tell you how. And then it will surround the nerve. The local anesthetic will surround the nerve. So we are kind of forming an extremely good hydrodissection around. And this particular hydrodissection gives you an extremely good black color background to put in a 2He needle and shove in a catheter through that. So you will see the 2He needle now coming here, and it will be seen even better because of the drug dissection. And secondly, the catheter will also have its way to come out. You can see the catheter jetting out of the tip of the 2He needle. So this becomes the principle behind every perineural catheter placement. And the former half of the video tells you how you can be injecting drug around any nerve. So we do it pretty rampantly. We are pretty passionate about it. So we keep on doing a lot of R&D here, and we have believed and we have shown it to ourselves and proved it, even with print, that we are getting far better results with this. Now, if you have kept a perineural catheter or an epidural catheter, so the child is still maintaining